Ed Sullivan was repulsed by this singer. Ed Sullivan is unquestionably one of television's most recognizable hosts. Despite his terrible on-camera demeanor, he became renowned as the top talent hunter in the industry. An appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show nearly guaranteed success in the challenging world of show business. But behind the fame and splendor, a number of tales of a different kind were in the works. Others are startling, some are unexpected, and some may transform your perception of this television giant, including nasty feuds with some of the most famous guests. Keep watching to find out more about Ed Sullivan and his life behind the scenes. Tragic romance. Ed Sullivan was not only a talented athlete, but he also liked spending time with his teammates. The spirit of sportsmanship and camaraderie inspired him to become a vocal champion for racial and social equality. Sports, in addition to helping him form good connections on the field, aided Sullivan in his personal life. This includes falling in love with Olympic swimmer Sybil Bauer. The two were a fantastic match from the start, and they got engaged after a few months of dating. Unfortunately, their tale was not intended to end happily. Bauer unfortunately died of cancer at the age of 23. Another shot at love. Sullivan was devastated by Sybil Bauer's death. He would need 2 years to completely recuperate and resume dating. With his heart beginning to mend, Sullivan met Sylvia Weinstein and thought he'd been granted a second chance at love. Unfortunately, there was a major issue. Sullivan's Jewish family disapproved of her Irish Catholic heritage. For a long period, the two lied about his real last name, pretending it was Solomon. They eventually told everyone the truth and married in 1930. Family life. The newlyweds seemed to be on track for a beautiful family life. The couples discovered Sylvia was pregnant just a month into their marriage. They brought a lovely baby girl into the world 9 months later. They called her Betty after Sullivan's mother, who had died a few months before. With their private lives full of pleasure and excitement, the new parents anticipated their happily ever after. They had no clue Sullivan's foray into entertainment would have such a significant influence on their objectives. Career change. Following his high school athletic achievements, Sullivan decided it was time for a professional move. He wanted to work in the journalism and entertainment industries, so he became a sports reporter. It wasn't long before he was writing for major publications like the Evening Graphic and the New York Daily News. The column Little Old New York contributed significantly to his notoriety, tempting readers with salacious information from the entertainment industry. The biggest band in history. Ed Sullivan has a special gift in store for all music aficionados around the country. In 1964, on his broadcast, he asked a lesser-known Liverpool band to play. Despite the fact that the group was big in the UK, they wanted to break into the US market and achieve even greater success. The act in question, as you may have guessed, was the Beatles. Their debut appearance on the program broke all records with 74 million viewers. To put this in perspective, the total population of the United States at the time was 191 million people. Exceptionally impressive. Buddy Holly feud. With the passage of time, it became clear that Ed Sullivan had a penchant for keeping grudges, and his quarrel with singer Buddy Holly was a prime example. Sullivan made it plain that there was no love lost between the two when welcoming Holly on the program by purposely mispronouncing his name on live TV. What's the explanation behind this? Holly just refused to modify some of the lines in Oh Boy that Sullivan believed were improper. As it turns out, this is just one of many grudges Sullivan will have against celebrities. The finger incident. One such event demonstrated how far Sullivan is ready to go when someone rubs him the wrong way. The Ed Sullivan Show convinced famed comic Jackie Mason to commit 6 performances for an estimated $45,000 in 1964. However, his appearance on the program was cut short when he made a pointing motion at Sullivan during his performance. Sullivan ended up canceling Mason's residency because he thought Mason gave him the middle finger. Then they began a protracted court struggle over what became known as the finger incident. Slam the Doors. Buddy Holly was not the only artist that was opposed to revising the show's lyrics. Following the arrival of Jim Morrison and the Doors, Sullivan requested that the rockers make certain alterations to their popular song, Light My Fire. He thought the words, "Girl, we couldn't get much higher," alluded to narcotics and wanted it removed. Morrison, being Morrison, agreed before singing the song exactly as intended. As one could expect, Sullivan was enraged. He was so enraged, in fact, that he promised never to bring Morrison on and the Doors again. Integrity is a virtue. Bob Dylan was another artist that was censored by Ed Sullivan. Sullivan attempted to persuade Dylan to tone down the political overtones in his songs and performances, but the strategy failed. Dylan, while being an aspiring singer at the time and yet on his path to the top, was unwilling to make any concessions with his music. He just left the performance at the last minute, saying, "If I can't play my song, I'd rather not appear on the show." The Rolling Eyes. Unlike Dylan, several musicians, such as the Rolling Stones, cooperated with Sullivan's request. Before performing Let's Spend the Night Together, the British rockers were urged to tweak the title line to Let's Spend Some Time Together. The Stones agreed but made a point of expressing their displeasure. Mick Jagger would roll his eyes every time he sang the other section. Sullivan was obviously irritated by this conduct, yet he still invited them back. Ed Sullivan's Blacklist. Some of Sullivan's feuds were well documented since they occurred on stage, while others remained hearsay and became the stuff of Hollywood folklore. Sullivan is said to have blacklisted Steve Allen, Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, and Jack Parr, among others. While most of these feuds were never given a meaningful context, people undoubtedly enjoyed guessing the causes for them and spreading tales about them. Even still, it's fair to assume that we'll never know if these disputes were real or made up. It basically destroyed my career. It took 2 years to resolve the finger incident, and Mason returned to the program. But nothing was ever the same again. Mason revealed some information about the encounter to Vanity Fair after the dust had cooled. The gesture was in his mind, Mason said, exposing the effect of the conflict on his career. It effectively ended my career for at least 10-15 years, because back then if you had an image of a filthy person, you were wiped out, he said. Mr. Showmanship. While Sullivan did sometimes dispute with some of his guests, these instances were much outweighed by favorable occurrences. Sullivan welcomed many performances with open arms, and his adoration wasn't limited to renowned singers and bands. Liberace was a perfect example of how he constantly tried to vary his concerts. Liberace quickly became a fan favorite on the program due to his flamboyant character, great abilities, and willingness to inject comedic elements into his performances. Even yet, there was even more interesting news on the show. Critical acclaim. It's not easy to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but Sullivan didn't stop there. Sullivan was considered an unorthodox figure throughout his career, owing to his unrepentant actions and unsmiling visage. Ironically, this was also the reason everyone, even the critics, even adored him. Sullivan has garnered several awards for his efforts in the business, including a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Variety Series, a Golden Globe Award for Television Achievement, and a Peabody Award. He also demonstrated that having a distinct style and thinking outside the box might lead to greatness. Away from camera. After more than 2 decades of broadcasting The Ed Sullivan Show, it was time for Ed to call it quits. And what a task that was. Sullivan began tiny and modest, but the program catapulted him to unfathomable heights. It established him as a true celebrity and solidified his status as one of Hollywood's best presenters. Still, all good things must come to an end, and he was ready to take a step back, relax, and enjoy the peaceful family life. Unfortunately, destiny had other ideas for him, and his time away from the stage was brief. Terminal illness. Sullivan was diagnosed with a fatal disease in 1974, barely 3 years after retiring from television. He had advanced esophageal cancer and didn't have much time left. The family thought it was essential to keep the real scope of his condition a secret at the time to preserve his mental health and offer him peace of mind. After all, he deserved to spend his dying moments away from the spotlight and surrounded by people who truly cared about him. Paying respect. The cancer spread far quicker than anyone expected. Ed Sullivan died at the age of 73, only a few weeks after receiving his diagnosis. More than 3,000 people gathered at St. Patrick's Cathedral for Sullivan's funeral. Among them were some of the celebs on his hit list. Despite the controversies and feuds, no one could say anything negative about Sullivan or deny his influence on the American entertainment business. No hard feelings. Everything is fair in love, war, and show business. Even Jackie Mason paid tribute to the late TV personality who effectively ended his career. He told Vanity Fair that he admires Ed Sullivan's life and work and that his confrontational nature sprang from insecurity. "He was a wonderful guy," Mason said of his friend. "He was the nicest, classiest man of the show. He grew really passionate throughout the performance." Sullivan, according to Mason, was nervous before each show and just wanted to make the show as perfect as possible.